This story begins with our protagonist seeing what seems to be his new mother. He doesn't understand what is happening, as she shouldn't be his mother. Additionally, he feels quite strange. Suddenly, some digital parameters appear, showing that he is at level 1 and doesn't even have a name. The surprises don't end there, as an imposing man appears congratulating the woman for the good son she has just brought into the world, saying that he looks good and has a great demeanor. The protagonist wonders if that man is some kind of emperor or something, becoming even more confused. At this moment, they ask the elder what name he will give the child, and it is decided that he will be called Noah Ararati, thus becoming, from now on, the 13th Imperial Prince. The protagonist has just discovered that he was born into the highest cradle of all imperial nobility. How lucky some are, right? The emperor asks what Noah's affinity is, and they inform him that he has an affinity with water. So the emperor decides that the protagonist will be the Lord of Armelia, the land of the water houses. The protagonist's statistics start to change, and someone comments, "Never before have we seen values like this." Now the emperor wants to see the status of his new son, and this becomes possible thanks to a spell. The one who is most surprised is the protagonist himself, as he just witnessed his water attribute change to SSS out of nowhere. This is madness for everyone present, as no one has ever seen someone with such high statistics at such a young age. Thus begins the story of Noah. To better contextualize, we are introduced to the Miles Empire, the nation of warriors that established its capital in a plain surrounded by imposing mountain ranges. In this empire, in its golden age, where wealth generates more and more wealth, a culture of dazzling opulence flourished. The emperor's more than 10 biological sons received the title of imperial princes. One of them, of course, is the protagonist who, after 6 years since his reincarnation, claims to have understood that these statistics are seen in the same way by everyone else. Thus, he perceives them differently. An example is the rank S of water. Part of this is due to the lordship of Armelia that he received at birth, and another part sells his subordinates, as apparently Noah grows stronger the more subordinates he has. Regarding his level, he starts to wonder if his power can grow without limits. It's a quite interesting question. Even though the protagonist feels limited by the fact that he is only 6 years old, he nonetheless realizes that he possesses great power. At this moment, we meet Evelyn, an elegant maid specialized in service. She informs the protagonist that the crown prince has just arrived along with the 4th prince. Although they were told he could eat leisurely and meet them later, the boy knows he cannot keep the crown prince waiting, so he goes immediately. The crown prince is Albert, the 2nd imperial prince, while the other is Henry, the 4th imperial prince. Both are clearly older than the protagonist and ask him not to be so formal. Albert mentions that he has brought a gift for Noah, but only from the aura he feels, he senses that something is off. When the servant opens the chest, the protagonist feels wails and cries around the sword and doesn't understand why. Albert asks if he likes it, as he wants him to acknowledge it. Being a gift from the crown prince, Noah cannot refuse it, even if he wanted to. Upon taking it, Albert congratulates him for being able to hold the sword and explains that its name is Leviathan, the most powerful water sword in the entire empire. He comments that 120 people died trying to master it, which frightens Noah so much that he almost drops the weapon, which would have been very dangerous. Harry asks him not to worry, as if he were not capable of wielding it. He would have already died upon touching it. Albert continues, saying that many people suffer because of this sword, but with Noah, it's different since he has an SS rank in water. Albert thanks him, saying that Noah has just shown him something very interesting, and then they both decide to leave. Noah wonders if that despicable prince has put him to the test, but he knows that even if he wants to, he must remain silent, as going against him would practically mean death. Meanwhile, Harry asks his brother if he will really leave the weapon with the protagonist, and Albert thinks it doesn't make a difference, as he prefers she be with someone who has enough talent. Moreover, precisely because he has enough talent, he should experience what it's like to be bitten by his own dog. It's not exactly clear what he's referring to. During the night, Noah asks his maid, Zoe, if something happened, but she asks him not to worry, saying it's nothing. The protagonist senses something is wrong and insists she tell him. At that moment, feeling very embarrassed, she confesses she was thinking of resigning. Noah asks if something happened, and she explains that a few days ago, there was a flood in her hometown. As the fields were left in terrible condition, her mother is now out of work. The situation is very difficult, and her relatives advise Zoe to become a companion to make money more easily, and thus help her mother. The problem is she doesn't want to stain Noah's reputation, but the protagonist assures her not to worry, as he understands the situation. and if she wants, her mother can start working at the mansion, as there isn't much else to do. He gives her the task of closing the back gate of the mansion with a payment of 10 rines per month. Zoe doesn't understand, as there is no job that consists solely of closing the back gate of a house and still pays much above average. I don't know about you all, but I would keep quiet in such a situation. It's an absurd bargain. To be honest, Noah mentions there's a house on the outskirts of the west side of the capital, and thus he grants permission for Zoe's mother to use it. She can't hold back her tears and bows deeply to thank her master for such kindness. Although the protagonist does this because he's a good person, he also knows that allowing a former maid to work as a companion could, in some way, affect his name as an imperial prince. Therefore, that would not be allowed by any means. At that moment, Dylan, the butler, appears, and Noah asks him to buy up all the land possible from Zoe's village. As with the flood and the difficult situation, some opportunists would surely try to take advantage and seize the belongings of everyone living there. The protagonist's goal is to protect those people before it's too late. Dylan is impressed, as despite this being the first time Noah is dealing with something like this, he was able to extraordinarily anticipate people's bad behavior. Of course, he can't reveal that he has seen things like this in his past life. Dylan warns that it will require, at minimum, around 700 kidneys to purchase the lands, which is an absurd amount. Zoe apologizes for getting him involved in this, and the protagonist understands the reaction from both of them, since the average annual salary of an ordinary person in the capital is only 120 kidneys. Noah's annual salary, for example, is 8,000 kidneys. Adding the taxes from Armelia, the gifts from the emperor, and other sources, the available funds at the moment are about 500,000 kidneys. With no other alternative, he orders Dylan to sell some of the lands they own south of the capital. The problem is that these lands were a gift from the emperor, and selling them without permission would be considered treason. But this matters little to the protagonist, who is willing to accept any punishment that may come, even though neither of them thinks this is right. Noah recalls that nobles from time to time need to make sacrifices for the good of the people. Dylan simply thanks him from the bottom of his heart. At that moment, the protagonist remembers that Dylan is also from that village, so it is only natural for him to be so grateful. The next day, all of Noah's staff is very busy, but Harry shows up to visit him for a while. The protagonist apologizes for not receiving him earlier, but Harry brushes it off. In fact, Harry wants to know if he is going anywhere. Noah replies that yes, as he plans to buy land in Dozo, where there have been recent floods. A little later, Harry asks if he intends to use the sword, and the protagonist says no, but that he will take it just in case. He then asks if Harry came just for that reason, and Harry explains that Albert said something strange and, as a result, requested an investigation into the sword. Apparently, that thing has a will of its own, and only obeys whoever it acknowledges as its owner. With that, the protagonist begins to understand a bit better what he felt regarding the sword, and Harry advises that he should take it if he wants. But do not use it, otherwise you may run into danger later. When they arrive at the elderly village, they realize that everything is completely destroyed. The protagonist asks Dylan to go to the registry office, as many documents may have been lost, and it is necessary to regularize everything according to the law. Noah decides to go with Zoe to observe the situation more closely, and notices that even the tubers from the crops are rotting. They see a group of people going to receive food, but what is being distributed is so bad that it seems almost spoiled. An elder comments that they cannot complain, as just having something to eat can be considered a luxury. Even if it is not ideal, one must be grateful. The protagonist says that it is unacceptable for the Empire to provide such poor food, but the conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Mr. Galio, the official responsible for that region. It is clear that he came to check on what is being distributed, as his interest is to offer the worst possible. Noah directly asks if he is embezzling the money, but Galio responds that it is very arrogant to ask such a question when everyone is suffering there, including him. Furthermore, Galio asserts that he deserves something in return for feeding all those people. The protagonist warns him that enriching oneself with resources meant for the victims is an extremely serious crime. Still, Galio continues insulting Len, the lord of those lands. The protagonist insists that using power to abuse the weak is terrible, but in his mind, he knows that if he does not teach this guy a lesson, he will never understand. Somehow, the sword moves on its own towards Noah, as those last words seemingly offended it as well. Then Noah begins to fight with the sword in quite a strange manner, as he believes that what Galio did was oppress the weak with his power when he should have helped, not caused suffering. Somehow Noah manages to subjugate the sword and commands it to be his and to obey him at all times. And that's how, well, I didn't expect that guy to be killed, but I also won't bother defending him. To make matters worse, Noah continues using the power of Leviathan and ends up creating a well that is practically bottomless, of course. Galil's followers accuse the protagonist in front of that knight, but the man, realizing that it is none other than the 13th Imperial Prince himself, immediately apologizes for not having recognized his presence earlier. Noah asks if he knows him, and the man introduces himself as Lowen Green, responsible for security in that region for a few days. And he is also a subordinate of Prince Henry. Naturally, Lowen commands everyone to kneel before the protagonist, and Noah asks the knight for help, explaining that some wrongdoers have appropriated all the money that was supposed to help and feed the population. He points out Galil's accomplices and says they must receive the punishment they deserve. Furthermore, he orders that a new meal be prepared, one that is more substantial, less watery, better tasting, of superior quality, and with larger portions. Because of this, all the villagers begin to shout in thanks to the 13th prince. Meanwhile, Albert learns that his plan did not go as expected, as Leviathan not only ceased to attack Noah, but also submitted completely to him. Still, this is not entirely bad for Albert, as he now knows that the protagonist will be much more useful than he had imagined. A few days later, the Emperor summons Noah, having learned that he sold the lands he had received as a gift and, in exchange, bought an entire village. Noah believes he is doomed and will be severely punished, but to his surprise, his father merely thanks him, for it is thanks to the protagonist's actions that the vultures were unable to take advantage of the flooding in that village, which could have caused a disaster that was not only natural, but also human. In a few words, the Emperor understands that, with this attitude, the Empire saved resources by not having to deal with two disasters at the same time. He asks how Noah found out about the incident, and the boy replies that it was through one of his maids. The Emperor believes that all of this was the will of the gods. In addition, he has also learned that Noah managed to master Leviathan, something extremely impressive, so he asks one of his servants to witness his son's power. Since it had been a while since he observed him closely, the Emperor is delighted to discover that Noah now possesses rank SSS in water affinity. Although Noah himself does not fully understand how this type of metric works, his father, on the other hand, hopes to count on this power in the future. Now we move to the capital of the Miras Empire, the center of politics and culture of the country. Likewise, it is the economic heart of the empire, known as the most prosperous city in the entire world. Here we see Noah arriving at Raid Street. According to his sources, there is a singer promoting herself around, so he decides to take a look. Zoe also accompanies him. It is not mentioned that Zoe wanted to make it up to him for what happened in his village, so he gives her more work, noting that she has matured quite a bit. Inside the venue, it is said that talented people are never too many, no matter how many there are. With that, some candles are lit, and we see a dangerous singer emerge. Noah is amazed at seeing her, and, if he's not mistaken, her name is Alice. He admits that she no longer sings poorly, but recognizes that she still lacks technique. Even so, he can feel that she sings with her soul, so she is certainly a responsible girl. While watching her sing, he notices the entrance of a somewhat irritated man, asking Alice what she is doing wasting time in that place. We see this bastard approach her, shoving anyone who tries to stop him. He, along with two other thugs, surrounds the redhead, saying that with what she earns there, she will never pay off her father's debt. She merely replies that this is the only thing she knows how to do, until the guy lifts her by her clothes. He tells her not to act foolish, since as a woman she knows there's another way to make money. In response, the entire audience lowers their heads, except Noah, who draws the intruder's attention and descends to speak with them. He comments on the imperial law, Article 67. On Section 2, a child is not obligated to pay their parents' debts. Having clarified this, he emphasizes that forcing a daughter to pay her father's debt with her own body is a crime. But for the guy, that doesn't matter. The man grabs Noah by his clothes, but our boys get rid of them using magic. The subjects rise, soar, and retreat, vowing to take revenge. Noah warns the owner that if that gang comes back, to tell them to come speak to him. That's when everyone realizes it is the Imperial Prince himself. Noah turns to Alice, telling her that she sang very well. He asks how much she earns a month to live. Alice replies that she has her mother's medical expenses and stammers, unable to say anything more. Then, Noah mentions that he will pay her 25 rines a month so she can sing in peace, and that when her singing improves, he will raise her salary. Alice thanks him, and Noah asks her to sing the next song. Back at the palace, Evelyn welcomes Noah. At that moment, she notices some men kneeling outside, recognizing them as the loan sharks. Evelyn tells that they came to apologize, thinking they had figured out who Noah really is. The protagonist simply orders them to be thrown out and told that if they think they have the right to see a prince whenever they want, they are very mistaken. At this moment, we see Harry arrive, stating that receiving such lowlifes would demean the dignity of royalty and princes. Noah does not disagree, but has more to say and asks his brother to come inside right away. He does not tell his brother that he wants to help the singer, and that is why he thought that if they believed he was still furious, they would not dare to approach her. Harry is surprised that he thinks of all this at such a young age, as Frank, Gary, and his other brothers, who are almost the same age, still act like children. Gary especially has no manners, although Henry says he will learn soon. In his thoughts, Noah reveals that although they are all brothers, they do not share the same mother. Therefore, Henry and Gary, who are from the same mother, must have a different bond. In the midst of this, Henry asks to talk about the sword, as he saw that Noah managed to master it. Noah does not mention that it was all thanks to her, since the sword truly had a will of its own. Harry asks how he manages to carry it, as it is bigger than him. Noah replies that it is nothing special, and raising his hand makes the sword appear. Harry, bewildered, asks where he got it from. Noah does not explain that he kept it hidden up his sleeve. By making it tiny, he reduces it to the size of a palm. He adds that it was she who taught him. In light of this, Harry is only left in awe, but that sword had been stored for 200 years as a national treasure, and there were no records of anything like it. Considering this a worthy reason to tip his hat, which he clearly does not have, he asks his little brother to understand the gravity of the situation. Later that night, we see the same guys from before in front of the protagonist's mansion. The bald man grows tired of being ignored and shouts at Noah to stop ignoring them and not act arrogant. His companions try to calm him down, but he can't help himself. With just a glance, Noah makes everyone fall to the ground. Harry asks what he did, and Noah explains that he just released a bit of Leviathan's power and used it to intimidate them. With that, Harry acknowledges that he has now truly mastered it completely. Later, we see Noah arriving at Roy Doc's party. Upon entering, they notice how people were eagerly waiting for them. He passes beside Rick on the way. Everyone murmurs that he is very young, while others compliment him for being so handsome. At that moment, Rido asks the little one what he carries at his waist. Noah explains that it is Leviathan, a gift from the Crown Prince. Hearing this, everyone is astonished, as it is the national treasure. However, one of the guests comments that it must certainly be a toy. Noah obviously hears this and turns around irritably to confront him, but more than that, Leviathan releases a dark miasma that affects everyone around. Here, Noah calms Leviathan, because although its loyalty is impressive, this time it exceeded. Seeing this display of power, He-Dog applauds the protagonist, as everyone saw how he is capable of controlling the colossal power of a national treasure. All the guests agree, affirming that he has definitely mastered a national treasure, while the other thanks Noah for saving him with all this. He-Dog asks what to do with that guy lying on the floor. Noah tells him to leave him, as after all, he no longer belongs to that place. Thus, the party continues. Several nobles approach the protagonist to introduce themselves. Among them is Byron Allen, responsible for managing the guild. Helen then introduces her daughter, Cindy. Noah asks if she happens to be adopted. Byron is surprised that he knows this. Noah replies that it is noticeable at first glance, as he sees her as someone from a second or third generation, besides having the demeanor of someone who was born into nobility, while the girl lacks that. On the other hand, he realizes that he adopted her when she was still a slave. Byron is impressed that he figured all this out just by looking at her. Noah does not mention that this is due to his gaze, as the moment she got startled, she went into a state of alertness, something characteristic of a slave. Byron reveals that he acquired her as a slave, but that she is a very intelligent girl, so he decided to adopt her and is teaching her everything. This pleases Noah, who tells him that one of these days he will invite him to his house to tell him more about her. With nothing more to say, Byron takes his leave. Upon seeing this behavior, Noah acknowledges that this man also knows when to withdraw, while some guests murmur with envy that they would like to be Byron. Nonetheless, Noah does not tell Rido that the other reason he knew she was not his daughter. He touches the sword to use intimidation, something that is noticeable. He tells Rido that, since the first intimidation, She has been protecting Byron, something that is not normal for someone her age. Idok, seeing that he is right, congratulates him for being so perceptive, especially considering his young age. The next day, we see Noah walking through the commercial district when he encounters Oscar, the 8th Imperial Prince. Oscar stops his carriage to greet him and asks what he is doing there. Noah replies that he was just taking a stroll, which surprises Oscar, since he could be riding in a carriage seeing that he is free. Oscar asks if he would like to accompany him in search of treasure. Noah does not immediately understand that they are heading to Cobalt Street. Oscar asks if he has ever been there before, and the boy replies that he has only heard of the place. They say that all kinds of antiques can be found there, although there are also many counterfeit items. Oscar comments that the taste of the nobles is to find the real treasure. Thus, they go looking at all kinds of things. Like ornaments and books, after the search, Oscar returns with Noah saying he couldn't find anything until Noah sees a blue book and buys it. Oscar asks if he found any treasure, but Noah replies no, just that the book caught his attention. Upon closer inspection, Oscar realizes it's Andre's grimoire, the great legendary wizards, and on top of that, the original. In a few words, a treasure. And although the price varies with the content, it couldn't be worth less than 1,000 kidneys. Oscar asks how he knew it was valuable, and Noah replies he didn't, although in his mind he reveals that upon touching it, his wind magic received a bonus, and that was the only reason he bought it. Here he doesn't realize something even stranger. His power can only receive bonuses from things that have their own will, so it's odd for a book to be capable of that. That's why his sword began to move, as it could sense danger nearby. Noah quickly grabs the sword and points it at the book. Oscar doesn't understand what he's doing until the book releases a dark energy. Noah lets it go, and the book opens up on the ground, flipping through itself until it stops at a magical symbol. From there, a massive dark energy emerges, and red eyes appear. Oscar wonders if it could be a cursed grimoire that holds the soul of the wizard himself. He tells Noah to run, warning that it is the vengeful spirit of the great wizard who mastered the wind. In response, Noah does not back down, and with a single motion of his sword, he eliminates the spirit. Everyone is obviously in shock, and Noah sees that the wind bonus disappears. Oscar asks if he's okay. Noah replies yes, and Oscar, worried about the city, asks if it suffered any damage. Noah explains that he directed the attack upwards, so everything is fine. Oscar is surprised by his little brother's intelligence, knowing he made that decision in the same instant. At that moment, a man approaches and kneels. He introduces himself as Alan Barsley, the owner of an antique shop on that street. Upon seeing what the prince did, he says he has an object he would like to show him. Noah asks if it's a treasure, and the man replies not exactly. Now we see them inside Alan's shop. He shows them a legendary ring that only reveals its true form in front of its rightful owner. So far, he has presented it to several people, but it has never reacted to anyone. Moreover, he reveals that he has thrown it away many times, thinking it was junk, but the object always returned to the store. Therefore, there is no doubt that it is special. Oscar finds it interesting and asks Noah to try it on. Noah puts on the ring and it starts to shine. At the Saikyou same time, a voice sounds in his head. Level limit verified. Rarity. S. New owner recognized. At that moment, the ring activates a protection, enveloping Noah in an extremely powerful armor. The protagonist wonders if this is really armor. When checking his parameters, he notices they haven't changed, so he assumes it's different from the Grip Morio and Leviathan. He intuitively senses that the ring has various uses. Thus, he tells Mr. Allen that he will take it and pay later. But Oscar offers to pay, as he wants to give the ring to him as a gift. Later on their way home, Noah was saying goodbye to Oscar when, suddenly, the same bald guy from before appears and tries to attack him with his sword. Zoe protects him, but Noah doesn't push her away, and using the ring, he creates a shield that blocks the attack. Immediately, the coachman charges at the man and throws him to the ground. Oscar asks what that was, and the little one explains that he linked the ring to Leviathan and that, as it seems, it acted as an automatic defense upon sensing hostility. Oscar is surprised that, in such a short time, he has already mastered the ring, stating that this is amazing. In the afternoon, Noah and Zoe were watching the same girl from before sing. Suddenly, a drunkard goes up on stage to harass her. Shortly after, another man also goes up, demanding that the first one leave, saying he saw her first. They both start to fight, but Noah stops them, blocks their attacks with the shield, and to neutralize them, he unleashes an electric discharge. Both flee running. People recognize the protagonist. The owner of the establishment apologizes to him for everything, but Noah does not order him to prevent that kind of person from entering. Embarrassed, the man explains that it is precisely that type of customer that allows the place to continue operating. Thus, Noah says he will buy the place, asks Zoe to bring the money, and hands 1,000 kidneys to the owner, who accepts and thanks him deeply. The woman also steps forward to thank the boy for protecting her. She says she doesn't know how to reward him, but Noah asks only that she keep singing, as he wants to hear her and, if possible, one day have the king listen to her. For that, she must keep improving. The girl sheds a few tears and promises to do her utmost for him. In this way, Noah returns with Zoe, and they both watch the redhead sing. Hearing her melodious voice, the protagonist asserts that he was not mistaken. She is undoubtedly a true treasure. The next day, while Noah is getting dressed, one of the maids enters and informs him that a guest has arrived. The visitor is Dead, the Governor-General of the community of Rejoice. Upon hearing the name, Noah immediately presumes that the visit is related to his fief, so he tells the maid to let Dead in while he finishes, getting ready, and that he will meet with him shortly. It is a common tradition in the imperial family to grant fiefs to princes so they can learn how government and leadership work in real situations. Because of this custom, the people living in these fiefs respect the prince who governs them almost as if he were a true monarch. Dead is no exception to this way of thinking. When Noah and Dead meet, they sit down and chat for a while about general matters. As the conversation progresses, Noah suddenly remembers that Dead had received, at some point, an imperial order to take care of the flood control system in Rui. However, judging by the state of the economy, Noah realizes that things are probably not going well at all. Rui is a fertile region known for producing large quantities of grains, and is located along the curve of a massive river. Still, the area continues to suffer from severe flooding from time to time. These constant floods are the main reason why the emperor appointed Dinda Agua to govern the region, in hopes that he could bring stability and control to the land. Dead doesn't beat around the bush. He openly states that the region he governs is too poor to keep functioning. The flood control operations, and thus came to ask Noah for an annual loan. This is hard to believe, since it was an imperial order, and such an order should have come with appropriate funding. Dead then explains that the money intended for the project was never delivered. According to him, the Ministry of Finance keeps delaying the payment and making excuse after excuse whenever he inquires about it. Upon hearing this, Noah immediately stands up and takes Dead to Maverick, the Minister of Finance, demanding to know why the funds intended for Rui have been withheld for so long. Maverick calmly explains that there is a very reasonable explanation. He says that Rui suffered huge flood damage last year, and that, since the emperor felt sorry for the region, he granted a tax exemption. Maverick believes that Rui should still have leftover tax money and should use it before asking for any further financial support. Noah immediately realizes that this explanation is absurd. His expression hardens, his voice turns serious, and he tells Maverick to stop lying and speak honestly. Maverick never expected Noah to confront him so directly, and is clearly shocked by the sudden change in tone. After a moment, Maverick finally admits the truth. He says that even if he wanted to send the money, he cannot do so at the moment because the emperor is planning to take a vacation in a few months. Maverick believes it would be better for the emperor to spend his vacation in a cool villa rather than the stuffy capital, and financing that luxurious trip will cost a huge amount of money. Noah sees right through this excuse and knows it is nothing more than a typical fund diversion tactic. Thus, he tells Maverick to release the funds to Rui, or he will personally appeal directly to the emperor. Maverick immediately starts pleading, begging Noah not to tell the emperor anything, and agreeing to provide Rui with all the funding they need. Dead watches the entire scene unfold and is completely astonished. He can't believe that someone so young managed to make the Ministry of Finance bow without even lifting a finger. From that moment on, Dead deeply admires Noah and respects him more than ever. After that, Dead returns to Rachoi to begin implementing flood control measures as quickly as possible. Shortly after, a royal messenger arrives to inform Noah that the emperor has summoned him immediately to the palace. Our protagonist answers the summons and kneels before the emperor, asking what could be the reason for such a sudden call. To his surprise, the emperor explains that he has merely called him to congratulate him for taking decisive measures in favor of Rui and for thwarting Maverick and his embezzlement practices. Noah accepts the praise, but can't help feeling intrigued about how the emperor already knew everything, considering that all of it had happened less than 30 minutes ago. Then, the emperor turns to him, gives him a pat on the back, and says that what he did that day is truly exceptional for someone his age. Furthermore, the emperor mentions another impressive feat of Noah. He was able to wield the Leviathan sword, a weapon with a dark and dangerous history, at such a young age. Seeing Noah's great potential, the emperor even went as far as to hire the best swordsman in the empire, Damien, to train him in the proper way to handle it. He said that Damien is the most skilled swordsman in the Empire, someone whom no one can defeat, and therefore he trusts that Noah will acquire much knowledge and skill under his guidance. Damien, in turn, feels honored to have been chosen for this important task. Still, he thinks it necessary first to assess Noah with a quick test, in order to gauge his current strength and determine where to begin the training. They start dueling immediately. As they fight, Noah begins to feel the memories and techniques of the ancient wielders of Leviathan flowing through him. Although he still has the strength of a child, he manages to use the sword technique to disarm Damien, who is considered the most powerful swordsman in the Empire. Damien then turns to the Emperor, bows deeply, apologizes, and admits that there is nothing more he can teach Noah, as the boy is already capable of using the Leviathan technique perfectly to disarm him. The Emperor simply starts laughing while praising Noah for proving once again how impressive he is. He then decides to appoint Noah as the chief examiner of the Knight's selection exam, knowing there is no one better for the position. Noah steps forward and accepts the task with a slight smile on his face. The Knight's selection exam is an annual event that brings together participants from all corners of the Empire. It is a nation of warriors that greatly values its military power. People often believe that the warrior's path is the best way to achieve success through merit. In the exam, the fighters who win the preliminary rounds in their regions gather in the capital to compete in the final battles. Our protagonist thinks that, with a talented knight at his service, he could, undoubtedly become even stronger than he already is. Then, the Emperor asks if, in doing so, he will evaluate the exam through a direct elimination system, or if he will hire all participants, as this is the first decision an examiner needs to make. In response, Noah says he has a request: to eliminate all the regional preliminaries and hold the entire tournament directly in the capital. The reason is that the Empire is indeed vast, and he cannot observe all the preliminaries in each region. Therefore, he does not want strong candidates to be eliminated for arbitrary reasons. The Emperor sees no problem with this and tells Noah to do what he thinks is best. The next day, Noah finds out that there are some candidates for the Knight's selection exam from a village. Since usually only one is sent per year, he tells Zoe that they can now send as many as they want, since he has eliminated the regional preliminaries. He then calls Dylan and orders him to purchase all the vacant houses in the region to be used as dormitories for the arriving guests. As for the food, Dylan is instructed to hire several merchants to provide food to the location on a regular basis. Later that same day, Noah meets with Byron, who is in charge. Upon checking the invoice, he finds it suspicious since it is much lower than it normally should be. Byron says it's just a discount for him being the 13th prince of the Empire, but Noah immediately realizes that this is just an excuse. Thus, he concludes that they want something from him and asks what it is. Byron is surprised that someone so young is capable of perceiving this so easily. He explains that there is a palace hiring exam conducted on a scale somewhat similar to that of the Knight selection exam, and they were hoping to gather information from Noah about the type of people that would be hired. From this conversation, Noah already perceives that Byron wants a girl to be placed inside the palace. Honestly, he understands the reason for this because if someone had support inside the palace, they would be the first to know about any new information or changes that might arise. Our protagonist tells Byron that he will accept the request. Byron assures Noah that he will certainly like the girl he has in mind. After saying this, he bows deeply before Noah. Byron also states that he will place the emblem of his family house on the sign of his shop as a sign of admiration. Noah is pleased to hear this, but firmly adds that he does not tolerate any kind of betrayal. During the journey back home, Noah suddenly realizes that accepting Byron as one of his subordinates has caused one of his statistics to increase. However, shortly after, he notices that another of his statistics has decreased. This immediately makes him uneasy, and he begins to wonder if something has happened in Almeria. Because of this sudden concern, he tells Zoe that he will see the Emperor immediately. When presenting himself before the Emperor, Noah explains that there have been some changes within the Empire. From the way his father responds, it seems almost as if the Emperor was already aware of this. Then, the Emperor explains that a rebellion has broken out in Almeria. Upon hearing this, Noah realizes that his statistic has dropped from SS to S, but the drop occurred in a specific manner. Unlike other situations, they deduce that the rebellion must be on a small scale. The Emperor confirms Noah's assumption and explains that there are 5,000 identified rebels, all located within Noah's fief. He then asks how Noah plans to handle the situation. Noah does not hesitate and admits that it would be impossible for him to solve this alone, as he is still young and unfamiliar with real combat. He is also uncertain whether the soldiers would even obey. For this reason, Noah suggests that if a prince prince has to be sent, it should be his older brother, Harry, who would be much better prepared for this task. The emperor respects Noah's decision and orders a servant to bring Harry immediately. About an hour later, Noah leaves the palace in a carriage along with Harry. Harry is surprised that Noah has decided to give up such an opportunity, as a conquest of this kind could greatly benefit him in the future. Suddenly, Leviathan senses danger, and Noah orders the carriage to stop. At that moment, he realizes that the attackers are targeting him and understands that he cannot allow his brother to be involved. Noah descends from the carriage, and immediately, several water-based attacks strike his position. Fortunately, he manages to raise a shield in time and protect himself. The rebels then reveal themselves and begin attacking Noah directly, but he easily defeats them using the sword Leviathan, ending the combat swiftly and efficiently. After examining the bodies, Noah realizes that the attackers are cavalry soldiers. However, Almeria does not have a supply of war horses, so he knows something is wrong. The next day, Noah meets with Byron and explains the situation regarding the rebels and the cavalry. He hands Byron 10,000 rian to purchase all the horse feed available. The reasoning is simple. Since war horses are neither sold nor bred commercially, the rebels must be stealing horse food from civilians. If this supply is cut off, the rebels will be forced to steal from the soldiers, leaving them exposed. Byron immediately understands the plan, and he praises him as brilliant, rising up promptly to put it into practice. Noah looks up at the ceiling and feels confident that this plan will make things much easier for his brother when the time for battle comes. The next day, Noah finds himself before the king. His Majesty mentions that they managed to get the assassins from the previous night to confess and reveal that the rebels intended to kidnap him to use him as leverage. Noah does not question the credibility of this information, as it was revealed with great ease. At this moment, the king acknowledges his son's cleverness, but asks him not to worry, for he has methods to determine if they are telling the truth. Even so, as a father, he feels relieved that they did not manage to capture his son, for otherwise the empire would face a great dilemma. Then, the king mentions the strategy related to foraging, which impresses Noah since the fact that he is aware of it, even though it was a recent order, leaves him completely perplexed. The king explains that, unlike what Noah ordered, anyone else would have thought of a strategy to isolate enemy forces from food resources, letting them starve. In fact, Prince Albert suggested letting the rebels starve as a punishment, but did not foresee that they would raid the villagers. Therefore, Noah opted only to cut off the food for the horses. Acknowledging his decision, the king declares it admirable. Noah does not thank him for the compliments, and the king starts to think that he should grant him a reward. After reflecting, the king says he will authorize him to add a sword to his coat of arms. This leaves our protagonist speechless, as it is explained that the empire is a country of warriors, and using the symbol of a sword on a shield without the emperor's permission is a crime that could even result in the death penalty. However, when the king himself grants this permission, it is the greatest honor an emperor can offer. Thus, His Majesty orders crews to issue an official decree. Later, Noah meets with Byron, who informs him that proper forage for transport is quite scarce. But, as he knows the delivery routes well, it was not a big problem. Additionally, Byron brings information about Karam, the leader of the rebels, saying that he seems to be an extremely bitter man, capable of doing anything to achieve his goals. Therefore, he asks Noah to be careful, even if it seems like a silly thing. At that moment, a maid interrupts them, informing that there is a severely injured man at the entrance claiming to have an urgent report. Noah immediately meets with him. The man introduces himself as the captain of a squadron from the district of Adora in Armelia and warns him about a revolt in Armelia. He explains that, being unable to support his superior, he deserted to come and inform him. Noah does not thank him for the warning, even though everyone knows he was already aware of it. Nonetheless, he orders that they tend to his wounds and grants the knight 1,000 rhinos as a reward. This leaves Byron confused, and later alone, he asks why Noah did that since that information was no longer useful to him. Noah admits Byron is right, but states that the very fact that the man risked his life to warn them deserved a reward. Byron eventually agrees. Later, in his office, while Noah was reading a book, Zoe enters and collapses on the floor. He approaches and asks what happened. She shows him a bag with 500 rhinos and reveals that she received it from a stranger who promised that reward if she could get Noah to drink a vial of sleeping potion. The boy deduces that the plan was to put the substance in his drink so that he would pass out. Knowing that the rebels are behind this, he asks Zoe why she brought it to him. She replies that she simply didn't want to betray him. Moreover, she thanks him for the help he gave to her mother and her village, but confesses, with tears in her eyes, that the stranger threatened her life if she didn't carry out the task. Unable to betray him, she decided to bring the coins and the sleeping potion to him. Noah writes a note and then decides to reward Zoe. He says that since those scoundrels tried to buy his betrayal for 500 rhinos, he, as a good lord, will add a 0 to that amount, but to the right, not the left, thus rewarding her loyalty. Zoe says she cannot accept it, but Noah insists she keep the money. She thanks him in tears for his generosity, but then Noah asks her to do something for him. He says he will drink the vial and requests that she hand it to him when he is unconscious. Although Zoe initially refuses, she eventually agrees. After that, Noah orders her to hide, as those criminals may try to silence her. Unsure, Zoe asks what he intends to do. Shortly after, we see Noah waking up in a strange place. He hears the thugs planning to stab him with a very peculiar short sword. But since Mr. Karam said to use it only as a last resort, they decide to do nothing. Upon hearing all this, Noah assesses the situation. He is tied up by his feet and hands. Then, he pulls out the sword he had hidden behind his ear, and as they hadn't removed his ring, he uses it to cut the ropes. He realizes he is in the back of a carriage, and before anything else, asks Leviathan to show him the memories. Thus, we see that after he had fallen asleep due to the sedative, the thugs came in to tie him up. Zoe managed to escape in time, and they did not pursue her to avoid attracting the guards' attention. After that, they placed Noah in the carriage and took him away. With this information, Noah understands the situation and rises to confront the thugs who were camped comfortably. One of them asks who the idiot was that tied him up poorly. Without fear, they approach Noah and ask if he wants to fight, reminding him that last time his brother saved him, but now he is completely alone. However, with a single attack, Noah silences the loudmouth, leaving everyone terrified. He says they are nothing but a waste of time, as he allowed himself to be kidnapped, believing he would gain valuable information, but now he realizes they are just disposable pawns. Furious, they all draw their swords and charge at him. Noah does not hold back and defeats them one by one until he eliminates them all. At this moment, he warns, and, arriving with the guards, Noah asks why she came, reminding her that he told her to hide. Zoe replies that she was worried and came as a precaution, but now she is surprised to see he handled everything by himself. Noah asks the knight in charge to take care of the thugs, as they are accomplices of the previous ones. However, when a soldier lifts one of the bodies, a sword falls to the ground. He gets ready to pick it up, but Noah interrupts him and orders everyone to fall back. Thanks to Leviathan, he is able to see the miasma of the curse emanating from within the sword and immediately recognizes that this is a sword whose blacksmith's grudge still resides within it. Everyone pays close attention to what Noah will do. Noah speaks to Leviathan, asking if he is capable of doing something. The sword responds, emitting a glow and releasing all the dark miasma absorbed towards a distant location. It crosses the clouds, soars through the sky, and reaches space, and, in a matter of seconds, arrives at its destination, piercing the forehead of the man who forged the sword, the leader of the rebels. Thus, in a simple manner, Lord Karam is eliminated. The next day, Noah meets again with the king, who congratulates him once more for his work and asks if he used his sword to accomplish such a feat. Noah confirms, explaining that he used the grudge contained in that short sword as a signal and aimed at its owner with a long-range shot from Leviathan. After Karam's death, the rebellion in Armelia was instantly smothered by Henry, resolving the issue. We now see Noah in a full audience with the king and the other nobles of the realm to discuss those involved in the rebellion. Caught up in the heat of the moment, the king orders them to prepare oxen and horses, asserting that he will quarter all of them. Those present congratulate him on his decision, but Noah disagrees, leaving the entire room in complete silence. The king asks for an explanation, and Noah argues that the punishment should follow the law which prescribes the death penalty for the leader and the gallows for relatives and accomplices, while the rest should be decapitated according to their degree of involvement. He also emphasizes that, although the word quarter is a common expression, it is not stated in imperial law. The king claims that they have stained his honor, but Noah calmly replies that if the emperor violates the law, public order will collapse, asking him to reconsider. After hearing his arguments, the king acknowledges his mistake and thanks him for correcting him. The audience is surprised, but the king declares that a light punishment does not satisfy him, only applying the maximum prescribed by law, with no possibility of reduction, and asks Noah if he agrees. The boy replies that he has no objections. Thus, the king leaves the question of the prime minister's responsibility open. Everyone continues to be shocked by Noah's courage in correcting the emperor himself, especially as he is just a child, showing no hesitation whatsoever. Because of this, they begin to call him a genius sent from the heavens. a true prodigy. The king stands up to thank Noah for preventing his name from being tarnished and announces that he will grant him a reward, bestowing upon him a title. Although any of his children could have advised him, being right is a unique virtue, and so that everyone may recognize Noah's wisdom, he is given the title of wise man. The title delights everyone, and Noah thanks his father, saying it is a great honor to receive it. The king comments that he wishes Noah had been born a few years earlier, but the audience ignores this remark and continues to acclaim the wise prince, wishing him a long life. The king then asks if Noah has chosen the methods he will use for the selection. Noah replies that he already has something in mind and will show it at another time. Later, we see Noah having tea, surrounded by 4 assistants with buckets of water, while the king is in front of him. He asks them to pour the water over him, and immediately his ring activates, covering him completely without a single drop soaking him. The king comments on his selection method. He will let them attack him, and will decide based on how much they impress him. The king says he expected nothing less from him. In this way, Noah will not tire as much and will be able to endure the entire selection, although there is a risk that someone might break through his defense. Even so, he is willing to take that risk and reveals that he is prepared to face an extremely powerful opponent. This surprises the king, who smiles, proud of his son's courage in taking on the consequences, worthy of a wise prince. Later, we see the king talking to the prime minister, who mentions the earlier comment, "I wish you had been born a few years earlier," asking if the king doesn't think he has exaggerated. The king simply smiles and says there is nothing wrong with his son advising him right then and defeating the enemy without even stepping onto the battlefield. Although he acknowledges that this is an unprecedented thing, he also confirms that, as I imagined, Noah's sword possesses a fearsome power. He then calls his assistant Cruz and asks him to bring it. The king explains that, according to legend, the true seal of Leviathan should not be broken, but he believes that perhaps even he might not be able to do so. Yes, the king has a lot of faith in this. The day of the knight selection exam arrives, so commoners from even the deepest parts of the empire come out to witness the new era of the knights and see how promising they are. However, this year has attracted a significantly larger amount of spectators, because when rumors spread that one of the judges would be Noah the Wise Prince, everyone felt they needed to go out and see it with their Noah's own eyes. Still plan to use his defense ring to test the candidates, so he is calmly drinking tea on stage when suddenly one of the candidates approaches and tries to attack him. However, his defense ring activates immediately and blocks the attack with a shield. The candidate repeatedly tries to break the shield with his sword, but it is too strong to be penetrated. Everyone watches this scene and realizes that this is the true strength of the wise prince. The emperor watches the exam from above and admits that this year's test is certainly more interesting than last year's previous, but that's just a detail because he knows that the true purpose of the selection exam is to choose worthy knights. So he is eager to see the kind of people Noah will. Choosing at sunset, one of the candidates is seen using all his magical ability to try to hit Noah with a flame attack, but Noah simply creates a barrier that prevents the heat from achieve it. The candidate then runs out of mana and passes out on the ground, realizing that he will never be able to pass. Noah recognizes that so far there has been no worthy candidate, so he is really eager to find someone who surprises him. The next candidate will be the last of the day, and Noah doesn't expect much. The blonde candidate advances and strikes a blow with her sword. The shield blocks the attack as expected, but unexpectedly she manages to use her strength to cross it and slightly injure Noah. Noah himself is shocked by this scene. The guards immediately stop her and they immobilize, but Noah orders them to release her immediately. He asks the candidate's name and she responds that her name is Shirley Grant. Noah announces that Shirley has just passed the exam, and everyone is shocked to hear this. Since no one had been there all day, the guards are especially surprised that Noah is allowing the candidate who just hurt him to be approved. They then start praising him, calling him a truly generous king. Then Noah takes Shirley to his mansion. As she kneels before him, she worries about the type of punishment she might receive for hurting him during the exam. She fears that hurting a prince, even if accidentally, could have serious consequences. But Noah quickly reassures her, telling her not to be silly because what happened was clearly a mistake. Accident. He smiles slightly and then surprises her by asking her to use that same blow on him again. Shirley is scared but obeys his order. She gets up and advances with the sword towards him. Noah raises his shield to block, and this time the shield doesn't break. He explains that this is what he could have done if he really wanted to block her attack after she went through the shield for the first time. He had chosen not to do this. Initially because he wanted to see if she would follow orders faithfully without fear of hurting him. After all, a knight's duty is to obey orders. He doesn't need a knight who is afraid of the fact that she attacked him seriously twice, even after wounding him in the first test, that she has the courage and determination necessary to being a true knight. Upon hearing this, Shirley is surprised to see that Noah has such a strong determination. Despite being so young, his calm and confident posture shows her that he is truly capable of leadership taken by respect. She kneels with one knee on the ground and swears loyalty to him. She promises to serve him faithfully for as long as she is a knight. Noah stays pleased to hear this and nods his head in approval. Then he looks at his statuses and realizes that making Shirley his subordinate has significantly increased his abilities, granting he has another advantage as a leader. At this moment, Zoe interrupts him to inform him that the doctor, a man named Croy, has arrived to see him. Croy immediately begins to examine Noah after an evaluation. Carefully, he tells Noah that Shirley's blow wasn't serious, because it didn't rupture any veins or organs. Shirley watches the doctor with interest, noting the professional way in which he takes care of Noah. She is surprised by his methods because they don't exist in her village. Doctors. Noah, noticing her curiosity, asks why Shirley explains that her village is poor and cannot afford doctors or medical training. When someone gets sick, they usually depend on an elder to pray or perform rituals in order to deal with the cause of the disease. Noah reflects on this and realizes that the quickest way to train new doctors is through apprenticeships. He instructs Shirley to select the smartest and most capable people in her village, then asks Croy to take some of them on as apprentices so they can one day become skilled doctors. Croy agrees without hesitation. Noah tells Shirley not to worry about the costs, as he will bear all the training expenses. Upon hearing this, Shirley bows deeply, expressing his sincere gratitude for his generosity. She spends the night in the mansion and wakes up the next morning full of determination. Quickly puts on her armor and goes down the stairs while walking through the halls. She comes across some maids gossiping about who Noah will marry. The conversation catches her attention for a moment, but Zoe intervenes, saying that it's still too early to talk about that kind of thing. After all, Noah is only 6 years old. However, another servant called Renee mocks Zoe's comment and tells her not to be naive. She points out that all the other princes were already married. When they turned 15, Zoe's expression doesn't change, remaining calm. Rihanna realizes the situation and immediately jumps to a conclusion, believing that Zoe must be secretly in love with Noah and wants to marry him after all. Zoe has been studying magic with Five lately, and Rihanna assumes this is all because of Noah. Zoe is a little disconcerted at first, but soon clarifies that her studies have nothing to do with marriage or love. She explains that she wants to be useful to Noah for everything he has done for her, so she hurries away, leaving Rihanna lost in her own thoughts while Shirley just watches in awe as Zoe walks away. Meanwhile, the night selections have just been completed, and Noah receives a report on those who were chosen. The responsible knight praises his judgment and thanks him for his services, highlighting that thanks to him, only the best candidates were selected. Noah feels silent satisfaction knowing that the future of the kingdom is in good hands. To celebrate the success of the night selection exam, he decides to organize a small party the next day. He invites his old friend Elite to perform that night, wanting the meeting to be both festive and meaningful. During the party, Byron comes to pay his respects to Noah. Noah welcomes him warmly and explains that he organized this party partly because of him. He also says that all the merchants who have ties to the royal family are present, making it an ideal opportunity for Byron to expand his network of contacts and strengthen his business connections. Byron nods, understanding the consideration behind Noah's gesture. The party continues, filled with music and laughter as everyone celebrates recent achievements. After some time, Zoe comes to inform Noah that he has received a letter. The note is unusual. There is no sender indicated, and the person who delivered it ran away immediately after leaving it before Noah could open the letter. Shirley warned him that it could be dangerous in response. Noah lightly touches his Leviathan sword to check for some malicious intention hidden there. However, Leviathan does not react in any way, indicating that the letter is safe. When Noah opens it, he finds a message warning about disturbing movements among the remnants of Almeria's rebels. The letter does not provide further details, but Noah immediately begins to piece together the situation. He realizes that the person who sent the message he probably went undercover to observe and investigate these suspicious activities. Noah thinks for a moment and concludes that the person who sent the letter was that soldier from the other day who had gone to warn him about the rebellion. Zoe hears this and realizes that he may be right, since the soldier seemed to admire Noah a lot. But Noah points out that this is extremely serious, because if he is playing a spy without any real training, will only end up dead. Noah plans to call his brother Harry and inform him about this to see if he can put an end to the situation before everything gets out of control. However, on the day, Next time it's too late, because Noah receives the news that the soldier was discovered and tortured. Luckily, he wasn't killed as his brother's unit managed to rescue him in time. Noah blames himself for not realizing this before. The soldier was only tortured for not revealing the information he had, and Noah thinks he should have spoken out because no information is worth the loss of a subordinate so loyal. Noah asks Zoe to convey a message to the members of his brother's unit saying not to spare any expense when trying to save the soldier's life, as he cannot afford to losing such a loyal subordinate. The next day, Noah goes out with Shirley to buy Henry a gift. As thanks for suppressing the rebellion, he goes to a nearby antique store, and he is shown several luxurious items, but none of them really impress him. What catches his attention is a piece covered by a cloak, so he asks the merchant to remove it. The merchant praises her for always having such a keen eye. The cloak is lifted, revealing a beautiful glass sculpture of a goddess. It is a work made by a famous artisan called Lindsay, and there are only 2 of these in the world. After examining it for a while, Noah says he will keep that piece and delivers 10,000. Revive him, but at that moment his brother Oscar enters the store and realizes that Noah has already found the rare one. Treasure created by Lindsay, there are only 2 of these sculptures, and Oscar comments that he has the other piece and was looking for the second one to complete his collection, but Noah arrived first when he heard this. Noah approaches the sculpture and destroys it. Everyone is in complete shock to see him tearing such a valuable work to pieces. However, Noah tells the merchant that payment will still be made when he hears. This Oscar immediately understands the reason for Noah's attitude. As there are only 2 sculptures in the world, destroying one of them would leave only one remaining, drastically increasing the value of the piece that Oscar owns. Oscar admits that it was a genius idea, and Hao is always impressed with Noah. After they leave the store, Noah notices that Shirley looks thoughtful and asks her to speak. Shirley explains that his plan to increase the market value was genius, but who was surprised that he destroyed such a rare treasure. Noah responds by saying that the sculpture wasn't the real treasure. It was just an object for him. The real treasures are people willing to dedicate their lives and their hearts to a cause and show loyalty, even in difficult times. These are the true treasures. Shirley smiles when she realizes that Noah is that unique leader in a million that she had only read about in history books. She vows to serve him for the rest of her life. Noah says he intends to gather even more treasures like this. 6 years pass and Noah grows up, visibly now at the age of 12, being dismissed by the maids and royal servants as he prepares to embark on yet another adventure. Noah is in his mansion. Eating, Zoe fills his glass of water, and he asks the maid who is near the window if something is bothering her. Gigi comments that the line of gifts for the prince is not over yet, even after 3 days. He comments that this is completely normal, especially since last year it lasted a week. She is shocked by this, as it is a long time. He explains that the queue doesn't end after him receive the gifts, as they still need to record who sent them and what was given, but says, not to worry, as Evelyn will handle this part well. Gigi is shocked and Zoe scolds her for his manners, even during working hours. He explains that the imperial prince, wise Noah, is 12 years old and was recognized for being able to perfectly master the magical sword Leviathan. By order from the emperor, he was sent to the Military Human Resources Administration to carry out supervision, and the responsible minister is his brother, the 4th prince, Harry Ararat. Another subordinate greets Noah, and he asks his brother what he needs from him. Harry says he wants his opinion on a matter. The emperor gave an imperial order for Rice to give him an army to suppress a rebellion in the southern border zone, as there are several barbarians there. They would become arrogant if the empire took it easy, so he will send the regular army to show the difference in strength. Noah understands the situation and thinks about Rice as he is a direct subordinate of the 4th prince, and in addition to his courage, he is very talented within the knights who serve his brother. He is of the ones that stand out the most. Noah asks if he can ask a question, and Rice confirms, saying that he can ask whatever he wants. Then, Noah asks what the true number of soldiers is, which shocks Rice. He questions what the real number of the regular army that Rice leads is. Rice begins to stutter to answer, and Harry asks what is going on. He stands up and asks Rice what he is hiding. Rice kneels down and begs for the 4th prince's forgiveness. Noah tells his brother that it's not something that serious, because according to the number of soldiers registered in the regular army of the empire, the finance minister releases a compatible budget, which Henry confirms. It goes on to explain that those who are not soldiers, but do small jobs as merchants and collaborators, end up being registered as soldiers. It is common for them to pocket this part of the budget. Bryce apologizes again, so Noah tells him not to be afraid and tell the truth, as increasing the number of soldiers is the general's right, and he doesn't intend to scold him for it. Furthermore, normally he can act like this, as even symbolic numbers can be a deterrent. Harry thinks that indeed, even if the numbers are not real, an effect can arise, positive in saying that there is a huge army, and praises Noah for his knowledge. Our protagonist confirms this, but turns to Rice and says that this time is different, as the Emperor asked for a total massacre. That's why he asked how many of these numbers are real and how many aren't, asking Rice to answer honestly. The general confirms he's covering up about 2,000 people. Noah asks him to re-establish these missing numbers. He asks Henry if he can borrow paper and pen, writes on the papers. Children of the imperial house usually die premature deaths. Publicly, they say it's an epidemic, but in reality, it's a struggle for power, and some even call for murder by poisoning. Anyway, it's about the life of a precious successor, and until the imperial prince grows up, he cannot go to war without an order from the emperor. Henry says that Noah is already 12 years old and would seem more respectable if he had that experience before taking on his fiefdom. Noah responds that he is always willing to go. The emperor just needs to order it. Your brother says that because he has a magic sword, this is not something that difficult to happen. Our protagonist asks when Harry's first battle was. At that moment, a little girl runs out of an alley. The coachman suddenly stops the carriage, and the fourth prince asks what is happening. The girl asks for help, and 4 more children appear running, in a row by 3 bandits who grab them. Noah tells them to release the children, but the bandits tell him not to meddle in other people's affairs. The prince asks them to show the record and asks how call their store, because according to imperial law, trading in unregistered people is a serious crime. The bandits attack him. Noah summons Leviathan and easily defeats everyone. Everyone is shocked, because he moved like a sword master. He turns to the children and asks if they are okay, and if those men were slave traders from the underworld. The girl starts to cry, remembering that they said they would make good money. Soon after, a man comes out of the shadows and says it's a pleasure to meet the wise imperial prince. He claims he does business with children like those, but says who cannot reveal who he is. When Noah asks why, he replies that he works for the first imperial prince. Gilbert Noah thinks that, despite knowing who he is, he orders him to remain silent, because his brother, the first prince, is next to him. The strange man says he doesn't want to cause a fuss, and asks Noah to pretend he didn't see anything. Noah asks Harry if he knows that man, the which he denies. Noah states that neither he nor his brother know him. Then Noah uses Leviathan's power to erase the man, and tells everyone that he was a scoundrel, lying by stating that he worked for the first prince to deceive others. Everyone around believes in Noah. He asks the guards to arrest the bandits and take them to the first prince's mansion, saying that they were using the Gilbert's name in public. He also orders them to take the children to his mansion. For now, Harry comments that he solved the case perfectly. Noah knows he can't just dismiss a Gilbert subordinate, but if he ignored him, he would become. It's true that they allowed an action by slave traders from the underworld. That's why he made it look like they were fakes and sent them to the first prince's house so he could sort it out. Personally, Harry comments that Noah is always amazing at night at Noah's. Asks what happened, and he explains that the first prince sent a message saying that it was a good job capturing the scoundrel. Upon interrogating him, they discovered that he was actually using the first prince's name. The intention was to hand him over to the court, but he took his own life. Noah realizes that the old man has become a scapegoat. He asks his brother if the slave trade in the underworld is on Gilbert's orders. Henry confirms, saying that he always owned stores, bought land, and was obsessed with this nonsense. Noah then comments that there is nothing that can be done, as the first prince is the son of a concubine and therefore cannot assume the throne. Perhaps, due to this frustration, he wants something, since he cannot assume the empire, and so business and land become an alternative. Harry becomes shocked that he could understand all this at just 12 years old. He says it was a repulsive story, but thanks to Noah, it had a peaceful ending. Later, Noah talks to the children, saying that he found a way and that they will no longer be sold, stating that they are now free, and asks if they have anywhere to go, to which they deny. Then they begin to tell the reason why they were sold. One was sold to pay for the year's rice seeds, another to pay for her mother's funeral, and one was thrown out of the house to reduce food costs. Noah thinks that, the way things are, they would be sold as slaves again. He tells Dylan that he will take them all in and asks him to find a place and distribute services to them, in addition to offering education to those who want to study. One of the girls asks if he is going to buy them, but Noah approaches and says that he is not going to buy them, as they are free, and for that reason, they can leave whenever they want. However, the only thing he does not forgive is betrayal. The butler explains that all they need to do is thank the prince generously and do everything with their heart and soul. They all say thank you and the butler, and Noah think that people are the greatest treasure. The next day, Noah calls Evelyn, introduces himself, and says that the handling of the birthday presents went well. He comments that she doesn't need to do the report, as she knows everything went well. Then he puts an envelope on the table and says it's for her. When Evelyn picks it up, Noah explains that it's for a letter of appointment and asks her to become the governing authority of a small territory in Almeria, saying that she is now a full-fledged official. It is explained that an authority ruler is a key position, also called local ruler. The fief granted by the emperor to the princes is too vast to manage alone, and for this reason, they send rulers for each region in order to govern as their representatives. Noah says that he has been watching her for years, and that she is the most intelligent among the servants, and it is a waste that she only receives visits at the mansion. Evelyn understands what he means, however. More than getting ahead in life, she wants to serve him. Noah responds that she has a future, and that if she does a good job as a governing authority, this will prove that he knows how to recognize talented people. He asks her to go to the outside world and work for the good of the prince. Upon hearing this, Evelyn accepts, says goodbye, and leaves. Shirley is left impressed and says that Noah's treatment of people is completely different from the first prince. Noah asks her not to say that again, as someone might hear Shirley if sorry, thinking that he really is incredible. After that, Noah goes to the emperor, who says he heard everything, and that he knew that he preserved Gilbert's honor. Noah replies that it was just a coincidence, as he just arrested someone who broke the law and believes his own brother made the report. Instead of trying to hide everything, he made it seem like he didn't do anything wrong. Emperor then asks what the crime of a slave trader is in the underworld. Our protagonist responds that for the unauthorized slave trade, the leader's punishment is the amputation of his hand dominant, while the others are required to serve in the army. The emperor confirms with the prime minister whether this is correct, and he responds that he is completely right. Then the emperor asks if Noah suffered any injuries, as he heard that the bandits went on a rampage and attacked him. Noah says that everything is fine, because managed to counterattack his father, comments that he already knew he was fine, as he doesn't need to worry about Noah, but that if it were him, he might have been beaten up. While he hesitated to announce his name, the prime minister says that, in this case, it would be a crime of lese, majesty, the penalty for which is death. Everyone starts to laugh, but Noah denies it, explaining that, according to the law of the empire, when someone does not know the true identity of the emperor, that is, acts before he announces himself, the crime of lese majesty is not applicable and is only considered a bodily injury. Everyone is shocked. Noah asks if he said too much and if he should apologize to the prime minister. But at that moment, the emperor bursts into laughter, saying that he won the bet. Noah wonders what this is about, and the emperor explains that he made a bet with the prime minister to test whether Noah would correctly cite the laws, as he has long noticed that he is strict with them. That is why, as emperor of the empire, he appoints him minister of justice. Everyone is impressed, because after the fourth prince, Noah is the first to become a minister. Later, Noah goes to the theater to hear his favorite singer singing and finds himself asks if there is something behind this sudden appointment. At the mansion, we see Zoe and Gigi saying goodbye to Evelyn. The children talk to each other about a mysterious prince throwing a glass of wine at the wall and smiling when informed that Noah has become a minister. Later, a minister comments that, as expected, that information was not wrong and tells another minister to handle everything. Emperor comments that time does not allow them to wait any longer. The next day, we see Noah getting out of a carriage in front of the palace of the Ministry of Justice. Everyone who was waiting bows to him, and he enters Vinny or introduces himself and says he is the Deputy Minister of Justice. Noah realizes that he is very young and that he must have had a very rapid rise. He asks what he should do there and asks Vinny to summarize the vice, says that in general there are 2 points. First is to coordinate the courts of each region of the empire and also the institution that effectively carries out trials of incidents that occurred in the imperial capital. In addition to there being a rebellion, 6 years ago, those who commit serious crimes such as revolts follow the empire's tradition of being judged personally by the Ministry of Justice or the Emperor Noah, so concludes that they also act as a common court, and Vinny confirms the prince asks if he also carries out trials, and the vice responds that, if necessary, yes. Noah asks how much he earns in bribes, but Vinny, he denies, saying that he doesn't receive any of this. Noah states that he is not asking for persecution. He just wants to know the real situation and that he will forget everything as soon as he leaves the room. So he asks Vinny to speak in a sincere way. The man says that he doesn't really accept bribes, but to those who do, he estimates that the value is around a few hundred clients per year. He is demanding in his choices, and that's why pays his subordinates 10 times the value of the possible bribe, so that they don't fall into temptation with everything he says that they don't accept judging murder cases. Noah asks why, and Vinny explains that in these cases, they are very exposed because the defendant directs hatred towards them, making them targets of revenge. Noah increases his salary tenfold and asks him to make everyone stop with the bribes while he is there because he wants to meet the emperor's expectations. Vinny said that the emperor granted him the title of sage when he was just 6 years old, and that he can now understand why he was named Minister of Justice. He returns the sheet. He says that the extra money is not necessary, that he will continue not to accept bribes, and that it will be an honor to work with Prince Noah. Responds that it will be an honor being able to count on him at night in the house of the 8th Imperial Prince Noah. Thanks him for the celebration. Oscar says he is happy for him because after Harry's 50 years of reign, the Emperor appointed a 2nd Imperial Prince as minister. He states that he really likes Noah, and that's why he is celebrating. Noah asks why he was named minister, and Oscar replies that it's probably because the Emperor. He likes him a lot. Noah thinks that his brother Henry had a fair reason, which was the suppression of the rebellion, but at the moment, he doesn't have any feat of that kind. He considers that the Emperor may have favoritism for him. Noah asks Oscar if he knows that in history, the Empire was once on the brink of ruin. Oscar confirms it is explained that the reason was the system used for the imperial heirs to the deciding the heir from birth. The other princes spent their time having fun, shaking up the internal affairs of the Empire. Reflecting on this error, the current Empire assigns fiefdoms to all imperial princes, demanding that they demonstrate a certain level of development. Oscar asks what this has to do with, and Noah considers that appointing ministers goes beyond the limit of what would be a good development. Oscar then realizes that the Emperor may be thinking about replacing the Crown Prince. Noah says he is still not sure at this point. Butler comes in and tells Oscar something. The prince reveals that it is exactly what Noah said, because he received information that a person is offering bribes, and that in tomorrow's morning meeting, it appears that the Emperor will appoint him finance minister. Noah wonders what the Emperor thinks about the Crown Prince. We see Albert receiving the information about Oscar back at the banquet. The 8th prince says not to worry about it yet because it's time to toast Noah's appointment in another place. We see knights invading a hideout where the rebels were. The Prime Minister goes to the Emperor report that in addition to Kit's 160 people were arrested. They wanted His Majesty to abdicate the throne and for the Crown Prince to take over immediately confessed the plans. According to advance information, the Emperor realizes that after 50 years in office they can no longer wait. The Prime Minister says they have not obtained any proof that the Prince Heir has participated. The Emperor states that he will do nothing against Albert, orders the execution of Kitz, and declares the matter closed. He asks about Oscar's case. The minister replies that he sent a man with whom the prince has friendly relations and who appears that the prince himself had already guessed something. Comments that Prince Noah was there. The Emperor asks if it was Noah who understood the intentions, and Noiji confirms. The Emperor says that Noah is still amazing. As always, he thinks that Gilbert and Albert are no good and wonders who should be his successor. Harry, Oscar, or Noah, it could be any of them. As long as they prove capable of overcoming the approval he will give the following day, in the palace of the Ministry of Justice, we see Vinny making a report on the accomplices and leaders of the last rebellion. Noah realizes that they are all people close to Albert, a confidant, a stud, and even knights from anyone's point of view. This faction appears to be a rebellion of the Crown Prince. Vinny asks what they should do. Noah thinks this is the most obvious reaction if his brother is involved by imperial laws. Even if the imperial family breaks the law, there will be articles that make the punishment milder. But there is an exception. Treason, if someone from the imperial family is involved in treason. It does not matter if they are the main culprit or an accomplice. They will be beheaded. Goes for everyone who knew about the betrayal and didn't report it to the Emperor. It's impossible that your brother didn't know anything since many people close to him were involved. However, the execution of a crown prince would cause an immense scandal capable of shaking the empire. Noah asks if the Emperor said something. Vinny responds that the Emperor only stated that individuals should receive the appropriate punishment. Noah confirms that he understood the Emperor's intention and that he will give the punishment. He goes to the Emperor and says that he decided on the sentence. Only the main culprits who have already been arrested will be beheaded. The rest will receive the death penalty. Everyone must be executed immediately. He thinks it was limited to these individuals. Because the Emperor does not intend to involve his brother in this case, and therefore the punishment should only fall on those who are on the list, the moment of execution could be moved to the time of the year in which they usually carry out all of them at once, but if there was a pardon, there would be a danger of leaking his brother's involvement, so the only possible choice would be immediate execution and everything. It's within what the law of the Empire allows. The Emperor says he did a great job, calls him Cruz, and asks him to increase his annual salary by 1,000 clients. Noah thinks that just that isn't enough as a reward. He then concludes that the emperor really doesn't want to involve his brother. The emperor approaches and says that he continues to place expectations on him and asks him to continue like this when he returns to the palace of the Ministry of Justice. Shirley calls him, showing 2 knights fallen at the door. He goes to the bodies and asks what happened. One of them tells him that they are invaders and that they are still inside. Noah asks Shirley to gather all the allies there and not let anyone other than him enter, even if he is an imperial prince. Noah runs in, passes the fallen knights, and orders everyone retreat when entering a room. He sees a subordinate being stabbed. He goes up and quickly restrains the invader, activating the ring to prevent him from taking his own life. 3 more reach Noah, and they advance against him but are quickly neutralized. He activates the ring again soon after Vinny arrives and finds it incredible how he managed to defeat everyone. Noah asks what the situation is, and the vice says that the guards suffered damage, and in addition, everyone who participated in the betrayal was killed. Noah realizes that this was the work of his brother Albert. He takes his sword and cuts himself. Vinny asks Noah responds that he was injured by the 4 invaders, and asks what the heaviest sentence is for someone who seriously injures an imperial prince. Vinny says it would be an immediate death penalty, and Noah asks him to enforce the sentence now. Then we see Noah being attended to by doctors, and Vinny appears to inform that the sentence has been carried out. Noah says that with this, the case is closed. The vice states that he was impressive, and Noah thinks that with one false step, the crown prince could have made the entire empire collapse. The next day, he goes to the emperor, who apologizes for summoning him in. The situation he finds himself in. Noah apologizes for the recent mistake, but the emperor says it's not his fault. He asks if the enemies had someone so skilled as to be able to hurt Noah. Already knew that this would be the approach, because the emperor has a very strong information network and must already be aware that he cut himself. Noah then responds that strength is not limited only the skill with the sword, and that no matter how skilled someone is in exposing their mental fragility, there will be times when they end up failing. The emperor says he is right. He is happy to having a good son, and comments that it would be a great help if everyone else were like him. On the outside, the emperor asks if he knows that some emperors can be called rulers. Wise, but 9 out of 10 tarnish his reputation in the last years of his reign. Noah realizes that he is talking about the crown prince's betrayal. He responds that the emperor guided the country into a golden age never seen before and would certainly be described as a wise ruler in subsequent generations. But if the betrayal had occurred, would record that in his last years, he became senile and was unable to even control his own son. Boa realizes that the emperor no longer trusts the crown prince, but now he would tarnish his last years of reign. He tells his father that he has a request to make Harry and Oscar our imperial princes, elevated to ministers, but all this is still new to them and they can make mistakes in the future. Therefore, it would be good if there was someone to order them. The emperor thinks he wants the prime minister, but Noah explains that a new title could be created, one position above the 3 as prime minister imperial prince, and that this role should be given to the crown prince. The emperor denies it immediately, but Noah continues saying that he has been crown prince for 35 years and that's why he's impatient, so they should let him play emperor, while the final decision would remain in the hands of the emperor. The emperor argues that even then the crown prince would be above them, the ministers, and could refuse important matters from other ministers, preventing them from reaching him, and then suggests that each imperial prince minister has the right to appeal directly to the emperor without going through the crown prince. If there is a relevant reason, the crown prince would not have real power. He would be in the position only as a title without effective authority. Emperor thinks the idea is incredible and says that this is the best way to resolve the situation. He says that Noah deserves a prize for this, but that money is not up to the idea. He calls Cross and go to the treasure room. When they arrive, the emperor comments that he heard that Noah has good vision for finding treasures and wants to see this ability, so he tells him to choose whatever he wants from there. Noah advances and asks the Leviata to search when he finds something. He goes to a box. The emperor is surprised when Noah opens the box. He is enveloped by a tornado of fire. And this is where our video. When you finish, type the word treasure to show that you reached the end.